Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Artist Next Level podcast. We are super happy to be with you in this episode. Today, we're going to reveal top secrets of a successful corporate art commission.
Resources, inspiring interviews, business practices, and practical advice to take your art career to the next level. Join Sergio Gomez in today's Artist Next Level and get ready to take control of your career.
We have with us Shirley Williams. She's joining us all the way from Windsor, Ontario in Canada. She's a member of the Art Next Level community as well, part of our program, and we're super excited to have her. And of course, with us, we have Drew Harris. Drew, you know Drew. Him and I, we have spent countless hours here chatting about all types of things. And of course, we are very excited to have Shirley with us today.
Absolutely.
And talking about this. And the story came because, or the idea came to invite Shirley because she recently posted in our community inside the Art Next Level a really beautiful photograph where she's standing on this really large red painting. And Drew knows how much I love red. And,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and Shirley says in that post that she had just, kind of gone to visit one of these paintings, one of the most recent our corporate art commissions. I believe it's 7 paintings, large paintings, plus like 15 smaller ones. So a huge project. And we're going to discuss some of the learned lessons. And of course, with our good friend Drew, who also has had many experiences with corporate clients. I think it's going to be a great chat. That's why I called it the top secrets. Top secrets. Good to see you both. How are you? Let's start with you, Shirley. How are you?
Great. Glad to be here.
Welcome, Shirley.
Thank you.
Welcome, fellow Canadian.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Good. Yeah, it is going to be an exciting thing. And there's a lot of information here that, a lot of people don't know, about your work and about the process in doing commission work. Mm-hmm. Commission work is just, it's an animal in itself,
it is.
Apart from exhibitions and that kind of thing. And Sergio, you say, 2 of the people that know a lot about commissions. Well, of course, you do as well. So there are 3 of us here to talk about it.
I think we should come up with some top secrets at some point, right?
Yeah. Individual top secrets.
Yes, and of course, this will be the beginning of the conversation. We don't know where the rest of the conversation will lead us, but I'm sure it will be something really, really good. So before we talk about commissions, Shirley, if you can give us a quick introduction into, who you are as an artist, the type of work that you create, so that our friends who are listening also have a little bit of an idea of what is it that you do as an artist.
Okay. Well, I've been an artist for 29 years. I moved to Windsor from Toronto in 94 to pursue my art as a full-time career. Before that, I was a documentary and film producer. So I had some business background and some visual background, and I had been doing my art degree at night. But at this point, I decided to sell my business and do this full time. So I took the plunge, and I don't know, Windsor seemed to welcome me, and I've been doing fine ever since. And throughout my career, I've had the real fortune, I guess mainly because of my business background, to be able to get into galleries and do museum shows and have my work shown and exhibited and sold all over Canada, the United States. Once the pandemic hit, and my work is really, it's abstract, it's quite textural, and its focus is on texture and color in a very kind of an organic, highly tactile and sort of energetic way. So when the pandemic came, I was kind of at a loss because all of my galleries closed and all my income dried up, as most artists had a little bit of problem with that. So I decided at that point that I would carve out 400 square feet from my studio space, which is a warehouse, and create a little boutique art gallery with, open garage glass doors, and, the whole works, make it really good. Because there was really no one in this city that was offering fine art. There's no gallery here. There's a museum, but that's it. So that gave me the opportunity to start approaching corporations, individuals, keeping my eye open for projects, that sort of thing. And it's actually been a really great thing to have this little gallery. because people used to come to the studio and, they don't know where to look, and they don't know what's finished and what's not finished. And you know the drill. So having this little space has been fabulous, especially for open studios. I can bring in corporate clients. I can bring in individuals. I'm open by appointment and kind of by chance if somebody rings the bell. But it's really been freeing for me, because now I'm free to either do shows in galleries and exhibitions and also represent myself in a way that is very professional. So that's kind of where I've come and am now.
Well, you speak so eloquently about your business. You're very succinct in that. And I think, as you mentioned, you came from a business background in Toronto in 1993. You left that. And I think that's something we should also share, all three of us, coming from a previous business, into something creative is what we do. And I think your attitude towards your craft, your art, also has that business aspect, which I think is really super important.
Super important. My parents actually did me a favor. I wanted to go to art school. And they said, you're going to have to get a business degree. And, it was really interesting being in the film business, because as a producer, you're the liaison between the creative people and the business people. So you have to speak both languages, which has really helped me, because I'm not intimidated by business. I can speak their language. And yet at the same time, with the gallery and my studio, and having kind of proven myself, they also accept what I'm saying, and I'm not pushing them. I'm not selling them. It's not a hard sell. So it has helped me a lot. Yeah.
And I remember, was it in one of the sessions before this commission that we were inside the Art Next Level? I think it was in one of the meetups or something that, or I think back then we were doing them in Zoom, where you just had said, like, well, they came to my studio and they wanted everything, and we were like, what? Something like that, right? Tell us that story a little bit.
Oh, that story. I mean, to this day, I don't get it. How did it even happen? But, it's also
a great story. It's a great story. We all have to hear it.
Story, but it also shows how you should always never take for granted the people you're talking to.
Yes.
Because one of the servers in a restaurant that I like to go to used to talk to me all the time about my art. And one day, out of the blue, 2 years later, she called me and she said, I'd like to come to the gallery and take a look around. Do you mind if I bring my husband? I said, no, of course not. Bring him. And so he comes in, or they come in, and she's talking to me, and he's looking around and, not saying too much. And then I said, oh, is there any one of them that, is your favorite? He said, well, I like them all. He said, how much for everything? So I laughed.
The dream meeting.
Right.
You probably thought he was joking, right? At the beginning.
That'll happen. I'll give you a good price. He said, no, I'm serious. He said, I'm the senior VP of operations for Hub Insurance. We have 60,000 square feet that we're renovating. We're trying to bring our employees back. And we want to create these beautiful these beautiful spots in the building for our employees. And we want to have real art. I thought, wow, that's great. So one thing and another, and they bought 17 small pieces. They commissioned 5 very large paintings for their lobby and their executive offices. And they bought 2 other very large paintings. And they're also talking about now, they were so happy that in the budget for January 2024, they want me to do another one that's going to be probably 15 feet in panels. So
wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now this is, you said it's a Chubb Insurance?
No,
sorry,
HUB Hub.
Oh, Hub. Oh, okay. So now are they based in Windsor?
They have corporate offices in Windsor, but they're international, so they're all over the States as well.
Wonderful. So all of these pieces will go into one location, or will they go into various?
Well, at this point, they're in one location.
They're already there, right?
They're there.
They're already hanging.
They're
well done.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first secret, like you said, never underestimate anyone. I talk about this before in our group too. The power, what I call the power of thirds. You meet somebody but that somebody is just the bridge that will lead you to the person who is going to give you that big opportunity.
Absolutely.
Sometimes,
if I had treated her, because she was always asking about my art, and if I had treated her like a waitress, like the way some people might, and said, "Oh, she'll never,"
right?
No one.
Right.
So
you could have taken them to the section where they have the prints or the small drawings, assuming that that's all
that would be their budget.
Yeah,
exactly.
Never assume.
Never assume.
Yeah, you see, this is just this is a perfect scenario that we all wish for. The dream client, and where you are just trembling in excitement when they say, "I'll take the ball," and you say, "Oh no," and then you can't speak and you go all pale and your mouth goes dry and you're not sure what to say. But we go through it, and the success, look what happens.
Well, there was icing on the cake too. And even another aha, because as he was talking to me, he said, "We have a little problem." And I said, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "It's going to be the budget." I said, "Well, we can work with that." He said, "No." He said, "We have to pay you up front because this was in October." He said, "We have to spend the money before December, so we'll pay you up front if you don't mind."
Wow. Well, this is a really good lead in to something, the little top secrets of the business we do. Oftentimes that can also be a thorn in your side, being paid up front, as we all know, but as particularly for commissions, because they provide the funds, you get the funds, you spend it on stuff. And then it comes down to actually starting to work, and then the demands come, right? So this is you were very lucky in all of this situation, and clearly they're very happy and they're an easy client, and but it can go wrong too, and especially in the big budgets when you are paid in full. And it's a law, I think, that we all we sort of say, okay, I'm not going to take all the money, because that kind of jinxes some projects.
It might, yeah.
It can.
But I've learned to do it a little bit differently before they give me money. And everything is laid out in a 30-page proposal. If they make changes or whatever, I usually have a very good idea. I know exactly the sizes, I know the colors, I know what they're looking for before I get a dollar. Before I get into doing any mock-ups or anything. I've sent them photographs of everything that they've looked at, that they've liked, all of the business details, everything that I could possibly imagine is in there. Delivery, extras, bonuses, discounts, everything is in there. So
the details are so important in these big projects, and that really says something to your history as a producer, in the film industry. Of course, you have to have your I's dotted and T's crossed. Everything has to be laid out, and it's visual, so you have to ensure that we know where that film's going, with the storyboarding and that kind of thing. So it's a really important lesson, I think, for people that are listening, that you make that extra effort. If you don't know how to do this, you learn how to do it, because it can go south very quickly.
Well, there are a tremendous number of parallels between what I was doing before and what I was doing now, because it's the same thing. Being the producer, because you're the person who is kind of looking after the budget, but also looking after the creative. The creative people want to do a Cecil B. DeMille movie, and the suits, they're saying you spent $50 more than you're supposed to. So you have to really keep everything in line, and it's a balancing act for me. I've had enough experience, but for somebody new to the corporate commissions, I think you have to really speak their language, be the one in control.
Right.
You have to be in control. You have to tell them what the parameters are.
You're the expert in the room in that case.
You are the expert.
Yeah.
And I always approach it that I'm the consultant. I'm not just some artist. I'm their consultant. If they don't, agree with my work, if they don't like it, fine, we'll just go somewhere else, right? I'm not going to force myself to try to be something I'm not, but at the same time, I'm helping them create the best art that they could possibly have for those spaces.
Yeah.
And I bend over backwards for them.
Yeah.
I lay it out all in, ahead of time. And I've never really had a problem. Except
Good.
That was an individual who turned out to be a little strange,
Well, there's
always that way. But that's a good success rate, I think a lot of us, or all three of us, can basically say, I think really from our business background that we've had the success with commissions at 100% or 99.9% because we're buttoned down when it comes to, and things do happen, sadly.
Yeah.
And you get the crazies out there, and you get the people that haven't expressed themselves properly. And in the end, it's a mix of information that, goes south, and no one can seem to get it back. And that's when you either abandon the project and pay them their fees back, or you just, white knuckle it and go through it. And oftentimes, that's what we do. If we're frustrated, we finish the job, and usually, well, in my case personally, it's always turned out well. It's always on their end that, they may have had a change of management or something like that, and someone might not agree with it. But we've done our job. Despite the problems.
That's exactly why doing your homework up front, and not just for commissions, but for sales too. If you're selling something and are you not communicating clearly either when it's going to be delivered or what's extra and what's not extra.
Right.
If you don't communicate that up front, there's going to be some bad feelings along the way, and that, you don't want that. So the more you can communicate with them, the more the client, whether it's corporate or individual, feels comfortable. And if they feel comfortable and they don't feel that they're not intimidated, they can talk to you about their ideas. They can say, well, I don't like the direction, or I like this better, or whatever. You let them feel that they can talk within parameters, right? You got to
and of course. And I think also too, just to add to that, there has to be some confidence on our side to say, and openness to say that, this is, in our case, abstraction. And abstraction is not, it's not a paint by number. There's got to be some element of, flexibility for the client. And they have to know that, yes, they might have seen a composite, but it's not going to be exactly the same, because paint has its own, livelihood, its own nature, and it will do things magical that we don't expect to happen. And and a lot of people, once you explain that to them, they're more than willing to say, yeah, I agree. Let it flow.
But I have a little trick about that too.
All right, let's see. Another top secret.
Top secret.
For a corporation such as the one I was just working with, I developed a relationship with them very quickly. So I didn't have any problems. I felt very confident going in and just doing what they wanted. They were very clear. I was very clear. We had a meeting of the minds. But when I have someone who is just getting one painting, because usually it's just one painting for a community, whether it's a corporation or an individual, I do two. I create two. One that I know is what they thought they wanted. And then the other one, I kind of play around with that idea a bit and get loose and be a little more.
Great idea.
And then I bring them in and let them choose. And it's amazing. They usually take my version, and often they'll take both. And sometimes it's a double.
See, that's good business acumen. Provide one and two.
This does too, is it takes away their, if somebody comes in and you've just created a painting for them, if they're not in love with it, they're afraid to say anything. And I want them to love the painting. So when there's two, it's a game for them. They say, oh, which one?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Back in the day when I used to do a lot of murals, so that's a commission where I would go, and with the mural you have to paint it on site, and sometimes it would be a problem because in the process of making the artwork, the first few layers they don't look any good, right?
They're
Because it's your
ugly.
own
Yeah.
underpainting, and that was always the most like difficult part to talk to the client, to say it's going to be okay. This is
Oh,
just the underpainting, because they would come and they were like, oh, this is not looking good.
Yeah.
uh-huh.
You could read it in their face, and sometimes, particularly if this was their first commission on a wall piece, because they imagine that you're painting from one corner to the other like perfectly finished. That's
Oh,
not how I paint,
Mm.
right? In my
Yeah.
process, I'm all over the place. I'm splashy, it's dripping here, it's
Sure.
dripping there, and then I bring it together at the end. But it would take. I know it would take some long conversation sometimes to help the person. I think it's all about what you said. Having that open dialogue with the client to help
Yeah.
them understand the process in which we work, particularly if you're working on site.
that's
Yeah.
one of the things I always discuss with them. I always say, they say, "Oh, can I come in and occasionally once
See
a
it,
week
yeah.
and see what you're doing?" And I always say, it's ugly. It's ugly right up
It's
until
ugly, yeah.
it's going to be ugly. You don't want to see it.
It's an
And
ugly baby right now.
it's a very ugly baby. So I always say, you can't come until I call you. And I usually call somebody
Uh-huh.
for a final, there could be a little adjustment either way,
Yeah.
right? It could be a
Yeah,
little
of course.
darker, a little brighter, a little lighter, just to see what they feel and get their temperature. I usually do that, the last week. And then,
So tell me, I mean,
Mhm.
I know in my own case, I deal with a lot of international, so they're not available to come just drop in. So we rely on, technology to, send pictures and standard video and that kind of thing. Now, how do you work with clients when they're not available to be sort of in person, one-on-one?
yeah,
Do you work through a process of photographs and video and
well, yeah, because if it's here, I like to go to the space. I like to go to
Yes.
the house or their office, and I get a feel for the environment. But if it's not, just like you say, we're very fortunate that we live in this world now. We've got video, we've got
Exactly.
Zoom, we've got photography, and I just, will have them zoom around their room and talk, and it becomes a conversation just like we're
Yeah.
having.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
What's your percentage for corporate to personal private commissions? Is there do you do more corporate work?
Oh,
or?
what's the percentage?
Yeah.
About 50-50. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say about half and half. I wouldn't say I do a lot, but I've always got one on the go, like,
Well, that's good.
but they last months, I don't paint quickly. So sometimes they go, I might do 3 or 4 a year, put it that way.
Yeah. Which brings me to the question, I mean, deadlines.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about
Like,
it.
how do you deal with that? Because oftentimes we're the last thing that comes to mind when they say, oh, yeah, well, everything's in place. We just need the painting. When? Can you do it by next Tuesday?
Yeah. No,
And you say,
sorry.
you either say yes or no. And most of us say yes.
Well, I usually give myself 6 to 8 weeks from the moment they give me a deposit. And that takes a lot of pressure off me. And you're right. A lot of them will come and they say, oh, we're having an opening party and, we need.
Of course.
You want to have it, yeah.
And I'll just say, well, I can't get it done by then, but, why don't you, borrow some of the paintings in my gallery? I'll hang them for you.
That's a good idea.
So then
Good
I
idea.
rent them the paintings for 2-3 weeks. And they're happy. It's all customer service, right? I'll do whatever I can.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Perfect.
good. Let's talk also about agreements, contracts, agreements, to the importance of having a document that spells out, kind of what you are responsible for, what they are responsible for, deadlines, budgeting, and all that kinds of things, which I feel, and, let me know how it works for you too. But like when I started, my career, my agreement was like this long, right? That's how much I knew, just a couple sentences. And then, as you learn, as you go through sometimes difficult situations, you feel like, oh, I need to also include this, or talk to other artists, include that, and so on. I would love to know for both of you guys, you're the kind of your some of the things that you have learned along the way when it comes to contracts and agreements. One, of course, I think we talk about the deadline, super important when a deadline needs to be done. Number of corrections. Do you include like number of corrections or proofs that you may give a client for, particularly for the one that is never pleased? At what point you say, that's this is it. I think that's one of the hardest ones usually for artists.
Do you want to go ahead, Drew?
Please, you're our guest.
Oh, okay. What was the question?
When it comes to, let's say, if I'm a very difficult client and I will continue, no, let's make it yellow, no, let's make it green, no, let's make it blue. So, and they're like nitty picking and never ending,
I only had one of those people.
Yeah. How do you deal with those, particularly in your agreement?
I thought I was going to strangle her, but I finally convinced her that she liked it. But I was
interesting though.
Wall. It was just to the point it was ridiculous. But no, I don't. Once they've accepted the mock-up and all of the contract and they've given me their deposit, and we're on a good wavelength, and they feel comfortable and I feel comfortable, and it's a go. I'll do it as often as I want them to be happy. So, but if they say, oh, we started out yellow, we decided it's going to be red. Well, at that point, it requires conversation. That's what we agreed to. Yeah. I'd be happy to make it yellow and paint it again, but there's going to be an additional fee.
And I think when you're dealing with the corporate or even private, and most people are smart enough to know that, you don't order a car and then as it's being shipped to you, you say, you know what, I think maybe I only want half of it red.
Yeah.
You go, well, clearly there's going to be some negotiation there. And that comes down to us being stronger. I know a lot of artists will say, okay, I'll change it. And they keep changing it. And then the painting becomes muddied and everybody kind of gets angry or the impatience level just goes through the roof. Although I think we always rectify those problems in the end, but the process can be painful. The contracts are individual too. I mean, some people are they are not going to sit and really, ponder over a long, lengthy contract. And they're the type of people that really are not going to be the type to nitpick something to death,
Yeah.
So you just give them the basics of the contract. Here's what you're going to get roughly. Here's when you're going to get it. Here's the price. And this is what you have to provide me, fees upfront, time, schedule, shipping, and address. And you handle the rest.
Yep.
And that's it.
It all boils down to communication. I mean,
of course.
I think, unfortunately, a lot of artists, even professional artists, are afraid to do commissions because it's kind of hard to make yourself, you have to put yourself in a position where you're almost split personality. You're the salesperson, but you're also the artist. And a lot of artists can't separate their ego. You have to let your ego completely go sideways. There's nothing to do with ego. So if anybody doesn't like that painting and they want something closer to that one, you can't get upset. I mean, it's personal preference. So you have to get rid of your ego. You have to work with them. You have to talk to them as if you're a gallery owner almost at some point. Yeah. And then you put your artist hat on and you go and do your job. Right. So it's a funny, you're walking a line, a very fine line.
Very much. Yeah. Well, Sergio, what do you think?
No, that's good. I was going to say some of my favorite clients that I've had is I have done some projects for colleges and universities, commission work. And what I love about those, and that's why I was seeking more of those for a while, is because they had their account for art. The art department had their supplies account. So I could charge separate for the materials versus the actual painting of the project. So they would say, okay, give me the list of everything you want. So I would do my whole list. And of course, if you're just gonna need just one
Like
dip
a
of
wish
yellow,
list.
you order a whole yellow, right? A whole yellow tint of paint. So those projects usually was what would pay my, all my materials for the entire year in my studio, because every time I did one, it was like a whole set of colors, because you have to, you have to order the whole set. So it was great because they had like their art department order the material, because they would get a discount anyway.
Yeah, of course.
And then I would charge separate for the painting. So those were like my.
Would that reduce your price? Like
no,
for the
no,
finished art, you would still keep it
I
at,
would still,
at the
yeah.
level
I mean,
pricing?
I would reduce a little bit, of course, the amount for the material. It will not be added to the actual work that it would take me to make the artwork. But the nice thing about it is that, like you said, you make your wish list. Oh,
Yes.
I even like colors that I might use it. It looks really nice. That metallic gold. Let's give that a try.
That's when you get the multicolor paintings.
And this is a great part of the conversation as far as a business perspective goes as well. This is called inventory, right? You keep your inventory. You stock your inventory through commissions
for those projects, yeah.
And so you can actually, the more commissions you do, really essentially the more money you make, because you're not having to reinvest in materials, all the essential materials that you need to do commissions. So with one commission, you've bought the materials like you do. And then the second commission, well, you've got a lot of those materials, so you can reduce the cost of your materials and increase your cost of, or increase your income or profit.
Drew. I mean, do you in your proposals, and also Sergio, do you cost out your materials in the proposal?
No, not generally, not for the client, because the client doesn't care. They just want the finished product.
Right.
So
okay. I misunderstood.
Like in our case, in my case, I mean, because I'm doing international stuff and often big corporate stuff, like it's not like yourself, I mean, doing fairly large work, but a lot of my commissions are exceptionally large. And that means then having to rent a studio, an extra space. I can't do it in my own studio. And that is costs incurred. That's always indicated, but I don't have to go into a specific number.
Right.
But they know that when they hire me, they know that I have limitations. So they have to pay for those limitations in a way if they want that bigger piece. Studio costs or transportation costs. It's going to be more expensive to send a 8-foot rolled painting in a tube to China or to Macau, or wherever, than it is to send it, a 2-foot painting. Yeah. Because the courier companies have stipulations. So these are all the costs that we put in. We make them very aware that in that final price that you're paying for this commission work, these are the parameters. And I think most clients, they understand, and they really don't want to know, how much per liter of paint is. No. They just have to know that.
It's not the painting.
Yeah, exactly, and the best products. And that's another thing I always tell my clients is that they get the best results because I use the best products. So they'll say, "Well, that's expensive. Your painting's expensive." Well, you know what? I use good quality materials, and I have to order those things, and I use those in your painting.
Sure, I mean,
I can use cheap, but you're not going to be happy with it. I'm not going to be happy with it, and you're going to pay maybe a little bit less, but you're not ever going to be happy with the painting. So
very
go
true.
for that extra quality,
right?
And that comes through everything: the shipping, the reinstallation, the teams that you hire to actually put it up in wherever it's going. You pay for that stuff. Absolutely. And you pay for a good. The guy with a ladder and a tape measure is long gone. Now you've got teams of people that go in and with laser levels and the whole. They're professional. So you pay for that.
Exactly. I always stress that too, that everything is going to be kid gloves. It's all archival. It's all the very best. I mean, example, modeling paste, if you're buying Golden and it's $180 a gallon and versus the hardware store and buying, I don't know, goop for 50, that's going to fall off the canvas in 3 months. And that's unfortunately what a lot of artists are doing now. You see all over YouTube, just buy garbage.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
It is falling off, and people assume.
It happened to my first mural. When I was actually a student, and so a guy asked me if I could paint a mural for his business. I said, yeah, sure. I had never painted one in my life before. I got the wrong paint, and it was oil, and it was like too drippy. So, because I was working on a smooth surface, not on canvas. I had never worked on a wall, indoor, not outdoor. So, it took me like 3 times longer to finish it because it looked like I was just working like super slow, but I had no choice. So.
That's how we learn.
That's how we learn. And because I wanted to, I say it because I wanted to save some money, and I went for the cheaper material, and very quickly I learned you cannot cut corners, when you do something like this.
You can't.
No, very true.
Question of one of our secrets.
Yeah, let's do it.
Can you, either of you, tell me when you work with interior designers or architects on a commission, and they want their 20%, and
oh boy, I know where this question's going.
And you're doing something, a big project, and the company, they deserve a discount too because they're buying several pieces. And then there's nothing left for you. How do you work with that?
Yeah,
you say no, or you do. That's
you add it. That. You have to add.
Well, I'm going to let Sergio go ahead, but I have a very strong opinion on this, and it's things that people get disappointed with because it's not painting for a gallery. You're not painting an exhibition. You're painting a commissioned work. There's parameters around it. And you want the work, you have to abide by the rules. And there seems to be sort of this unwritten rule. You're not going to be paid what you're normally paid.
Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, when I have done that too, is that the artist, ahead of time that this is going to happen. Yeah. So you have to agree with it from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, in the art world, everybody who's involved deserves a cut. Just like when my gallery, facilitates a deal for another one, to somebody to buy something, or when we bring in a designer or something like that, it's part of how it is, and that's why in some projects you lose, but then in some projects you gain more than you expected to. So at the end of the day, it kind of balances things out.
I don't think it's ever really a loss. I mean, you've got that
exactly
loss.
Right. True.
Just like
prestige. There's an element of prestige when you you have to balance that out. If you've got a hotel that tens of millions of people are going to see it over the next 5 years, you take you weigh that out against the money that's going to be spent within a few months.
Well, yeah, and the way I look at it is, your time is in the studio anyway. You might as well be making 25% rather than 80%.
It's a funny but it is disappointing, and people, unless you are really established in the world and you are like a very sought out after or corporate artist, people are doing large installation work and that kind of thing, those are few and far between. A lot of what we do now and our bread and butter are designers that are coming to us as the third person or the middle person to a boutique hotel in Guangzhou or in Windsor. There's a little boutique hotel, but it needs a designer. It's got a designer designing it, and they put all their effort into the comfortable beds and in the end they come to us and they say, we need something visual on the wall, but we don't have much of a budget. And you think, okay, well, it's already spent.
Yeah.
But you know what? you weigh that out, for how much time and effort you're going to put into it. Is it a good client? And what kind of exposure are you going to get? And that one client can turn out to, a number of projects over your artistic lifetime, So do we say no and risk
I never
that?
say no, unless I know the person is not for me, unless they don't like what I do, or they want something totally off base. I never say no. If it's someone who's coming to me directly because they like my work, I would never say no.
Now, have they ever thrown this ball at you? They'll say, okay, we really love your work, but we also really like this artist's work too. Can you do what they do in your work?
I say go to them.
Well,
usually they cannot afford that one. That's why they.
Well, then your company.
It's usually a Picasso or something.
Yes, exactly.
You know what? I'm not sure I can do it.
No, I never do that. No. It's my work. The way that I begin is that I have them, if they're familiar with my work or not familiar with my work, one or the other, I have them go through photos is better than a screen. I have them go through a photo album of previous work going back years that I have. And I've got them all printed on photo paper 8.5, 11. So it's a nice binder presentation. And as we go through, I have them pull out the ones that they like, and we have a pile. Then we look at that pile and we say, okay, what about these do you like? On second thought, is there any you want to reject? And we nail it down to kind of a style, because we all have the same style over the years, but things change. So somebody might like one that's more bright or more subdued. So I get them kind of into it themselves until they get to a point where they kind of really know themselves what they want.
Yeah. And that's when you start your process of, preparing a composite to show them?
No, I do that before, actually. I do that before I get into a presentation. They approach me, they want something. I'll say, well, what did you have in mind? I usually do, if it's local, I'll do a walkthrough. Sizes, colors, what did you have in mind? So at that point, I'll say, well, let's have you come over to the studio, take a look what I do, look through the binder.
Yeah.
An idea. And sometimes they actually buy something that's here and it turns out not to be a commission, which is great. And so at that point, we know what we're going to do. I know the sizes. I've already roughly discussed the budget. I've roughly discussed the parameters. I've kind of verbally gone over everything and they're getting excited. And then I say, okay, I think I'll put this all in paper for you. And still a go. I'm going to need a deposit and it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks. And here's what's going to happen. And then the next visit after that, I see them with the mock-ups. I know where I'm going. They sign off and I begin.
Excellent.
That's a good, process.
People listening to this and here's the woman to go to. You want a commission, the place to go to right here. And there's, that, as fun as that is, when I say it, it is important, knowing that these corporations, they have strict budgets and they have a process they have to work towards. They don't want some flaky artist that says, "Oh, sure, I can do that," and then find that actually I'm off in Ibiza right now, traveling. I can't do it right now, but I might be able to do it. You go, no, we're running a business here. Can you provide your service? You're a service to the interior design world.
One of the things that I do, which is really helpful moving forward, is when a client is happy, they just, I love it. It looks so great, in the room, whatever. I always say, can you put that in writing for me?
Get a testimonial.
A letter,
of course.
Testimonial for, to help me out. To. And so I also have a binder that all goes into the next presentation for the next company. So it's already pre-sold, in terms of their mind. They know I'm not flaky. I'm not going to let them down. I'm going to work with them.
Yeah. Well, I think just look at this conversation we're having. It's very clear that you know what you're doing, and to a corporate client that have an assumption of what artists are like to deal with, you might be actually a pleasant surprise for them, because you are talking their language, and that's a really important part. You have to wear the two hats, like you said. If you can't be flaky in these situations.
No.
There are deadlines and there are expectations, and you have to finish the work, and there are frustrations. We've all had it. I've been to the point where I've just almost given back the commission money and said, forget it, I'm not doing your project, because you guys can't seem to agree on what you want, and you're making changes. So they say, oh, well, I thought you're an artist, you can just do whatever we sort of say. And I go, well, no.
Yeah, it's complicated when you're working with a committee.
That's true.
If
like
you
herding cats,
more people,
that have to make a decision, it's important, like totally super important, right from the beginning, that it's really clear who's in charge, who's going to make the final decision.
Yeah.
Who is making the choices, the colors, the sizes, who is the person that I'm talking to?
That's another top secret right there. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's one person that will give the go ahead, that does the sign off, that takes responsibility for the whole project.
Oh yeah,
that's true.
And that's complicated sometimes, because nobody wants to tell you at the beginning. You really have to play the.
Who's going to take on that? Yeah,
it's political.
Yeah. I've worked with agencies, and where a lot of these interior design companies are headed up by pretty serious designers. They're older generation. They come to me because they like what they see. We're of the same age, but oftentimes below them there is a young designer, and this is one of the major problems that we've had in the past, where the young designer doesn't want to make decisions for someone that's very busy and often out of the office. You have this liaison that is really not quite sure about whether to give the go ahead and approvals on certain things. So they'll say, yeah, I think that's okay. And you go, what you think? Okay, well, can you know? Yeah, I'm not going to do anything until I know for certain. And they'll say, okay, well, just go ahead. I'll say, no, why don't you get it in writing and show what we've just talked about to your boss? And then I need that boss to sign off on it, because otherwise what you believe and what the boss believes may not be. In that case, I've had situations where I've gone absolutely bananas working with a young designer, and he was a good designer, but he couldn't make up his mind, because he was thrown into a position of, had to act on behalf of the company, but the ultimate approvals were by someone his senior. And I finally ended up just talking to the senior partner and saying, you know what, I can't work with this young designer. I'm sorry, you're wasting my time. And that was a commission that was 40 feet in length, by 10 feet in height, and that's not an easy project to work on.
Oh, no.
And then when you do the whole thing based on what they say, and then he says, well, actually, I don't think we should use yellow. I think we should go green. And you go, what? The whole painting is yellow now. You just told me to paint it yellow.
Yeah.
And I went in a yellow tone. And now you're saying paint it in green.
What I do with interior designers, and I don't work with them as often as maybe you do, Drew, because I have run into issues where, like you said. But when I do get an architect or a designer that wants to work with me, I always ask them to meet the client. I want to see the space, and I want to meet the designer or the client. And I know that they're
read the energy.
Yeah, I want to read the energy, and I want to really know, because it's the client, not the designer, who's in charge. It's not the designer who makes the decision. It's the client who's going to live with it. So I will work with the designer directly, but I want to know that what they're telling me is the correct interpretation of what the client wants.
That's good. That's good.
The client doesn't know either. They don't know what they want. They're just saying, well, whatever the designer tells me. But there again, I try to clear the space. Like who's telling me what, and I want to know before I start what's the story? What's the real story?
There are situations that I know we've all been through this, and I always reference this one to people that I work with and new clients, and even people that I talk to about commissions. You know, I did a commission through a design company, an interior design company, and I provided all the composites, and then provided applications, times, deadlines, shipping things, what they're going to have to do on their end to get it up, and on the walls. And these were 8 different paintings. I had to sort of copy some of my older paintings, which was okay with me. They were my paintings. I did all of that. I did it to the T. I did this commission to the T. I did video. I posted things online. It was fantastic. And after I got them to the client, I was paid. And I asked the client, the middle person, did you ever get photos of the final installation? Oh, no. The owner of the property didn't like the paintings. And I said, why not? He said, well, he was never informed by his subordinate.
Oh, wow.
So I said, so where do the paintings go? He said, in a storage. And I spent 2.5 months of my life creating these things and documenting every process and approvals. And yet it goes into storage.
Wow.
So I use it as an example now. And the paintings were exceptional because I really put an effort to do exactly what they told me to do.
That hurts,
And and it was a disappointment because it was a really good corporate client. But in the end, it came down to one guy, the chairman, saying, don't like it, don't want that in my office, go put it in a storage.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And on the other side, let's talk about the rewards of once the piece is complete, it's hanging on a wall. You come back later, maybe a few days later, a year later, or 2 years later, and the feeling of seeing your work on a wall,
amazing.
On a public space or corporate space. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's important too. It's as artists, we always talk about, the hustle and the bustle that happens in the studio, but those projects that go successful and you go back, I find that they bring me back in time. Whenever I
had that experience this week.
Tell us about it. Yeah.
This particular project that we just talked about, this big one, I'd been working on it for a long time with this client for about 4 months. And by the time they were delivered and installed, and I saw them on the wall the first time, I thought, I could see the flaws. I thought, I could have done this different. I would have, it's like too much.
Yeah.
And I bit my tongue, and they were really happy. But in my heart, I was thinking, it could have been better. So that was 4 months ago. And then yesterday or the day before, I went over to take some pictures. I hadn't seen them in that length of time. And I walked in the lobby, and I almost had tears in my eyes because it was like I was seeing them for the first time.
Yeah.
They're so powerful. And
they need time to settle in. The paintings need time to sort of blend with their environment, I think.
And I needed to settle.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because a painting has a life And when you've been working on it for so long, it just overpowers you. You like I said, you can see the flaws. You keep wanting to add another layer, do something else to it.
And a lot of times they're not really flaws. They're just kind of like
things you would do different.
Yeah, what would we have done differently,
Yeah.
And that's why when we look at them again with fresh eyes, it's a whole new experience.
Yeah. And it was great because I walked into the lobby and the receptionist behind the counter, they said, "Oh, you're the artist?" And I said, "Yeah." We get so many compliments on those. People love them. And it just
that's good.
You think, oh, it was all worth it.
Yes, it's
worth it.
There you go. There's the ultimate. That's the ultimate saying. It was all worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember. Well, my wife travels a lot for her school, for the university, taking her students on exchange programs, and they go off to Japan or wherever. It's usually South Asia, and a lot of my clientele are South Asian. But I have done so many commissions for hotels and big, big corporate guys. But I never seem to get the photographs, the proper photographs.
Yeah.
It's usually from the designer that, has taken the picture of the art on the wall, but all the wrapping is next to it. You're like, can you not move the wrapping and just taken a picture of the art? Well, of course now, but, it's the little things like that. I never seem to get the pictures. It's another thing you add into your contract is photograph documentation, final photographs done by someone professionally on their end,
I've never
so that you have it. Yeah, I put it in because a lot of designers, once they finish their project and all the glad handing is done and, the ribbons have been cut and the place gets open, they never go back to shoot them. So my wife, when she travels, she makes it her mission to go out and find places. And you've probably seen on a couple of my posts where she's walking through, I think it's the Four Seasons and the Mandarin Oriental in Guangzhou. It was one of my best projects ever. And I'd never seen pictures of it.
Oh.
And she walked through it with a video. And they led her through each of the paintings. Mm-hmm. And it was heartwarming. It was like, oh my God. You got to see them there with the sound of the hotel going and everything else.
Great.
It was amazing. Japan, the same thing. I know I'd put paintings there, but I kept referring to them, but I'd never seen them. And she was there, and again, in a hotel, executive level, and she went up and took pictures of it.
That's great.
And brought it home, and I was like, wow, they still look great.
Yeah.
And Sergio, I had to thank you because I did something on this project I had never done before.
Okay, tell us about it.
And they're really, I think it's going to, they really are happy about it. And that was, I offered in the, instead of giving them extra discount, because, they all wanted the discount when I did the proposal, I said that I would create a catalog of their collection.
Okay.
And offered and supply them with 8 full catalogs.
Okay. Nice.
So you can put in their executive suites and in their lobby and
great idea.
Chairman and all this stuff. So they're really excited about that. And that's, to me, that's like, it's going to cost me some money and time, but it's free advertising.
Yeah, exactly.
Were these printed like booklets or books?
I haven't done it yet because they're not quite finished. They still want that big one in January.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's done, will you produce like a hardcover, one of these photo books where it shows
like a print on demand?
Print on demand, like blurb or something like that.
I will give you a beautiful catalog. Mm-hmm.
I think they're about
a great idea.
$dollars or something to print one.
Yeah.
So, even if I sent them 10, that's maybe $250. It's cheap advertising.
Right. Something that's wonderful. That's a great idea. Another thing that I have done as you were talking about that I just remembered with a couple of clients I did, and I gave him the idea. I said, once the piece was finished, so why don't you, and I can help you design a thank you card, on behalf of your business. So when you need they give thank you cards to, to your clients, with the cover being one of the paintings. So all I ask is that in the back you put, my name
Great idea.
as the artist.
That's
And
a great idea.
a couple they did. One of them sent it for their some sort of anniversary something that they sent to people who came. And so that was like free advertising. All I had to do is just give them the idea and give them the permission to. I didn't get anything paid for it, but it doesn't matter. It was like a way to get the word out. All I ask is my name be on it, and that's it.
The other thing I do too, which again is free well, not free, but very inexpensive advertising, is I supply them with name plaques.
That is good.
So
that's a good idea too.
My name, like on just a very discreet silver plate. You can get them done with my name, the name of the painting, the copyright, and all of that. And they love that.
Yeah, because oftentimes they're asked, the receptionist is asked, who did that? What's the name of it? Yeah, and they should go, I don't know the name of it. I got here after, and you go, right, okay.
Yeah,
but it's a good idea. That's a really good.
And you get a name plaque,
catalog,
$, and the name is out there forever.
That is good.
These are two really good ideas and these create good customer service. We can promote their product all you want, on our social media and that kind of thing. But I think these are the little incentives that will keep a client happy. And clearly that this client that from Hub, one of your clients, is coming back and will probably continue to come back and refer you to other clients.
Exactly.
And it's all because of the little name tag, the possible book, the customer service, because they have the product now. They're very proud of it, but you just keep adding to that. It's like, these are really important key factors.
Yeah.
So,
Super. Well, I think we have covered a lot of top secrets there, some add-ons. So believe it or not, we've been at it just about for an hour. So
wow, went by fast.
I know. I think we have given our friends a lot of really good insights, a lot of really good things to think about, for everyone, all of us. I think we all learn from each other. I learned from Drew, from Shirley, and we all learn from each other in these conversations, which is great. But I have one more question to ask you, Shirley. It has nothing to do with corporate clients, but rather with you as an artist. How did you find the Art Next Level, and why did you decide to to come with us to join our community?
Well, when I started out, there was no internet, and there were and believe it or not, I'm old enough to say that it was considered really bad form to be representing yourself or trying to sell your own work in those days. So I was kind of like a unicorn, business and art. Like, you're not supposed to know business.
Right.
So I learned kind of through hard trial and error. And, sometimes I think like, okay, maybe I should try this or I should try that, but is that really the way to do it? And I spent an awful lot of time going down this road and that road and trying to do this course and that course. And there's an awful lot of fluff on the internet that, it's not professional. It's sell your art, $5 worth of art a day and all this kind of stuff. So I joined because of two things. I wanted to create conversations and get to know more professional artists that were really professional, not just playing at it.
And you are very good at that, by the way.
What's that?
Conversations.
Oh, yeah.
Conversations and communication.
Oh, absolutely.
I think you are one of Sergio's key members.
Thank you.
Well, because you understand the value of communication.
That's and I wanted that kind of networking, and learning. And believe it or not, yes, somebody might think I know everything after all these years, but no, I don't, because I have learned so much from all of you. Just, little tidbits here and there, little professional tip, a little something here and there. And actually the series you just did recently about creating a body of work, I had freshened up my thinking about that in a long time.
Good.
So, it was really good to go through that whole program with fresh eyes, almost like a beginner's mind, and say, okay, maybe I need to look at this again. And so I've been really learning, and I've been enjoying, and I've been just having a great time. And I really appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you. And
well, I know I can speak on behalf for maybe of Sergio, what you guys, what the members do, and they make little suggestions. They make, little successes and failures and things like that they post and we share. And then Sergio, goes, bingo. Hey, we got to talk about that.
Right.
I'll say, yeah, that's a good thing to talk about.
For sure.
And the next thing you know, we've got a whole month-long session, and it inspires you guys. Really inspire Sergio.
Yeah,
I hope I do too.
Andrew.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm learning the internet through you guys, because that was my biggest bugaboo. How do I, get through and promote myself on the internet? So that was really one thing that I've learned a lot from you, and I'm just enjoying the whole. I don't know what you would call it.
Camaraderie and
the community.
Community.
Yeah.
No,
very
important.
And we appreciate you, Shirley, in the community, and
thank you.
It's wonderful. That's one of the wonderful things about it. We have artists at all levels. Artists as experienced as you are, and then artists who just starting their career, and we all learn from each other, right? We all can pick something from somebody. Said, I never thought about it that way.
Well,
and then just go from there.
Absolutely. And, it's so valuable, because if I had something like you guys when I was starting out, I would have saved 25 years on my career.
I think we all would have as well.
I wouldn't look the way I do now.
Yeah.
For sure.
I might have hair like him.
Well, at one point it was all black, but I don't know what happened. All those bad commissions.
It looks good now.
well,
I think I think this has been a really valuable
it's been
session.
great.
You brought up some really, really serious, solid points, and we can't stress it enough. The business side of our careers. We need to do it. We need to be business people, and we learn from each other. And you sure have taught me a few things. I love the little name tag thing. I think that's fantastic.
That's the cheapest form of ad.
I hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Shirley, for all our friends who would like to follow up after this podcast and know a little bit more about your work, follow you on Instagram, could you please share where they can find you both on social media and online?
Sure. I'm on all the social platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, you got it. And I've got a website which is basically a portfolio site, shirleywilliamsart.com. And anyone is free to go there or call me or contact me, email anytime.
And for your social media is Shirley Williams Art, right?
Yeah.
On all of them. Perfect. Wonderful. Super easy. Well, there you go, friends. Do us a big favor if you listen to this podcast, if you learn something new, if it inspired you, please do two things. One, click on the little share button on your screen or in your device. If you're listening to the podcast, please share it with all of your friends as well, because we can all learn from each other. And then, of course, go and follow Shirley. Contact her as well. If you have any further questions, let her know that you listen here to the podcast. So I want to thank you, both of you, for joining today.
Thank you, Sergio.
It's been such a great conversation.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, Shirley, this is your home too. Anytime you want to join us again, just come right over.
Yeah, and always encouraging new ideas. And this
Absolutely.
This is part of why I get excited. Helping this guy out as little as I do. He drives the whole machine. I'm just following along behind him.
You
make a good team.
Yeah, I'm very proud of my association with these guys. But they're driving it. So
it's all good. It's all good. When one of us wins, we all win, right? So that's
right.
Motto. So thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you at the next level.
Check out our website at www.theartistnextlevel.com, where you will find our podcast library, learn about our upcoming webinars, find resources relevant to your career, and much more. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, and we'll see you at the next level.